When I was a little boy, our family returned to the U.S. from Japan. It was February 1953. My brother had been born the previous December, and I had turned 6 the month before that. I want you to think about the North Pacific Ocean in the dead of winter. I do sometimes, but mostly it's because of the storm. I don't remember being afraid, despite trying to maintain my balance during the pitching and yawing of the ship and the huge waves. Earlier that day, I had thrown up. My mother, fearing an encore performance, would not let me eat supper. They were having meatloaf. Even then, I was fond of meatloaf. The other thing I remember was my brother Mark, tiny and pink and wrapped in swaddling, rolling across the berth in concert with the movement of the ship. I'm telling you, friends, it was like this, and then it was like this. And he'd bounce off one bank of pillows and roll back and bounce off the next bank of pillows on the opposite side. Lately I've been telling people who know him that it was because of that rolling back and forth and bouncing off the bank of pillows that is responsible for the odd kind of person that he is today. He's not here so I can talk about him. And he usually gets a laugh, but I think Mark is probably going weary of hearing it. It's odd, but I believe if I had to go through the experience again, a little older than I was at that time, in the North Pacific Ocean, say in February of 2018, I wouldn't be nearly as cool about the experience that I had been when I was 6. Did you know that when you stand on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, you can see the other side? Did you know that? You can't do that at Lake Erie or Lake Ontario or the other Great Lakes. And that may sound like good news to you, but it isn't. Did you know that storms on the Great Lakes can be more dangerous than those in the oceans? I think it has to do with the depth of the lakes, their relative size, and the fact that it doesn't take much energy to get those big waves going as it does in the open ocean. All of which is to say that when the perfect storm arrives in Galilee and it hits the lake, a bunch of things happen very quickly and unpredictably. Clouds pile up and bring the wind, the rain, the waves, and the fear. It happened to Jesus and the disciples. Jesus was asleep in the stern, you know the story, in Mark 4. The disciples were hanging on for dear life. Nothing they said or did made any difference in the wind or water. Somebody screwed up the courage to let go of something so he could make his way along the thwart and wake up Jesus. And he said, Lord, don't you care that we're perishing? And up until that point, they hoped that he would make a difference because they were afraid. Now, fear plays a major part in the Gospels and also in other parts of the New Testament because we fear what we do not understand. And on the other hand, we fear what we understand too well. We fear because we believe we know our limitations, and those limitations will not stack up for long against the waves beating on that little wooden boat being kicked about like a soccer ball at recess. We fear because, like the Portuguese sailor prayed, the sea is so large and my boat is so small. We fear things we cannot control, and the single most compelling feature on this planet, over 70% of the Earth's surface, is the sea. Of course, you would never know that by the way we treat the oceans and the seas. Increasingly, they're becoming huge garbage dumps. In 1992, I was visiting the east coast of Nicaragua near a small city called Bluefields on the east coast, as I said, and our little mission delegation walked out onto the mud tidal flats and the sandbars at low tide to find all sorts of medical waste, including used needles, dressings, bottles partially filled with who knows what. And the real tragedy of this experience for me was the response of the authorities when I tried to do my civic duty and report what I had found. I mean, what was I thinking, folks? Didn't know that it was out there? In the first place, they already knew about it. Where did I get the idea that they did? The second was a brief lesson on the condition of the Nicaraguan nation, which was at that time the second poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. The gold medal going to Haiti. The fact was, they told me this, we thank you for bringing this to our attention, sir, but we have far more important problems to deal with. The medical waste that washes up on our shores. Sadly, this is very true. The sea is moving in the direction of ecological disaster, and many people in positions to do something about that are more comfortable denying it. Yes, the seas are huge, but they are not infinitely so. And then again, when the sea becomes so full of garbage that we no longer have the benefit of its gift, the good news is we'll all be dead anyway. And we can leave it to our descendants to deal with. There's another side to all of this. How do we deal with forces and factors beyond our control, like the sea? Like what's happening to our country? How does it feel to be buried up to our chins in the sand, watching the tide creep toward us? Sure, we can deny this. We're not really buried. There is no apparent tide. But so why not do what the powerful people in capitals all over the world are already doing? Deny it. It's not a problem. But that's what it seems like to me. Denial is a vastly underrated gift. But I'm powerless, I'm just one guy. I'm powerless. What can I do? And so yet another side that we need to look at. I mean, there are different sides all day long, but this will be the last one, I promise. Okay, I don't promise. Do we believe what the Bible says about our responsibility as stewards of the earth? Real simple. God planted a garden called earth. And He created us and the rest of creation. But our specific responsibility is to tend it. Yeah, and our president appoints Scott Pruitt to lead the Environmental Protection Agency, who, as Attorney General of Oklahoma, has sued the EPA probably a half dozen times. But I'm powerless. Even with a microphone, I'm powerless. But then I think of all the people, women and men, who refuse to say that. They refused to say that they were powerless. And they were not afraid of the sea, the mass of apparent power that was going to come in like a huge tsunami and sweep them all over. They weren't afraid. I think of people. Most of them were people of color, with names like King, X, Gandhi, Parks, Tubman, Truth, Mandela, Vesey, Lincoln, Anthony, and so many more who refused to say, I'm powerless, who did not fear the sea. Okay, nice sermon, wasn't it? Right. We can all just walk out of here and just say, hey, that was a nice sermon. Really, the question is, are we powerless? Is it not true when Jesus said, wherever two or three are gathered together in my name, I will be in the midst of them. And there are more than two or three people here this morning. I counted you. I can count that high. Now the question is, what? If we signed on to the idea of claiming the power we have, what happens now? What are we willing to do?
I'll invite you to refocus your attention from whatever test or trials may be, from whatever chaos may be, and see the God who is risen, standing with and among us.
Why do you cry? He has risen. Why are you weeping? He's not dead. Why do you cry?
So can I be a little bit confessional with you this morning? I hate the water. I enjoy it if I can get in it and it's not over my head. I will risk getting in it if it's over my head, if I can see the end of the body of water that I'm getting into. I will even go out into the ocean as long as the ocean doesn't come above my waist. But anything further than that, you're pushing my comfort level, because I really hate the water. So much so that despite having had opportunities and people even giving me free tickets to come on a cruise and enjoy going on a cruise, I said, no. I don't want to go on the cruise. I appreciate the kindness and the offer. And while I'm sure it would be relaxing for some, unless the boat I'm on is bigger than the water we're going into, I don't want to go. The reason, my brothers and sisters, it really stems to, there was a movie, I think it was called Lost at Sea. But I remember watching it when I was younger. It was about a couple that went on their honeymoon. And, they were in this tropical island, and was having just a wonderful time, and decided that they wanted to go deep sea diving. And so they get out on this fishing boat with 10 other couples. There were 12 of them in all, and they go out into the ocean, and one of the gentlemen doesn't have the proper gear, so he can't go, so he's forced to sit. And so the person that he is there with is forced to sit, so they're sitting on the boat while others go down and explore all of the beautiful fish and plant life underneath the water. And while it looks all beautiful and serene, something happens with the count, and the person who's captaining the boat doesn't get the count right coming back. And so they leave this couple who've come for their honeymoon out there in the water by themselves. They come up and look around and see no boat in sight. And there they are. And the rest of the movie is this couple there surrounded by water, trying their best to get boats as they pass by, or helicopters as they fly overhead, to see them, but to no avail, because they're just out there lost at sea. Now, they know how to swim, and they do have equipment, so they're able to stay afloat for a little while. They're able to tread water and to stay alive during that, but something happens, and something catches the gentleman on his thigh, and the blood starts to trickle into the water. It isn't long before the sharks smell the blood in the water, and they begin to circle. And the movie said that the sharks, they really don't want to eat you because they don't like how humans taste. But they don't know that until they taste you. And then, once they taste you, they swim away because they don't like the taste of it. But then they smell the blood, and they've forgotten it just that quickly that they don't like how you taste. So they come back and taste you again. And then it's the constant biting over and over. So the shark doesn't eat people, despite what happened to Samuel L. Jackson in Deep Blue Sea, but the shark bites you over and over and over again. And so you die from 1,000 shark bites. And this is what happens to the man overnight. He's there in the middle of the water, and sharks circle, and they bite him over and over and over again. And then when the sun comes up, he's bled out into the water, and he's died. His wife is sitting there holding his body, realizing she has to let him go because soon the sharks will be circling for her. So she pushes the body as far away as she can, and she's there in the water by herself. And finally, with her heart broken and giving up on any chance of being found or recovered, she releases herself from her life jacket and lowers herself down in the water to drown in the watery grave. That's why I don't go out on the water. My brothers and sisters, the experience of the couple in this film unfortunately mirrors the experience of too many people in our society. As we talked about building community from chaos, understanding that the water represents chaos, my brothers and sisters, I want to argue that there are too many people in our community that are trying to tread the chaos of the life. And that all it takes is just a little bit of a snag, a little bit of a hiccup, a little bit of blood that trickles into the water before the sharks start circling around. The people in our lives, in our communities, in our families. I have them in my family, and you probably have them in yours, who've just given up to the chaos. They've surrendered. They may be alive, but they've given into the chaos. They've given into it through drugs and alcohol. They just checked out of life. They've given into the chaos. They've given into it through taking violent actions against themselves or against others. They've just given into the chaos. They've given into it through the overconsumption or hyperconsumption of goods or materials or food or other things. My brothers and sisters, they've just given up on life because the chaos that surrounds them, it seems to be too difficult to overcome, that the cost of education for too many people is too high for them to be able to attain education, and without education to have gainful employment seems like a Herculean task. And without gainful employment, the things that make it possible to live life with dignity seem impossible to grasp. And so forced to cope in an existence where they feel less than dignified in their everyday life, they check out of it, my brothers and sisters. They take off the life vest and drown in the water. And it's easy at times. It is dangerous at times, especially when we come to the house of God, and especially when we sing songs like Don't Cry. It's easy at times to look down, even when we are not intending to, at the people who've checked out. And said, if only they had believed a little more. If only they had a little more faith. If only they could have pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, not thinking at all that bootstraps can't help you in water. If only they were able to do X, Y, or Z, they wouldn't have been in that situation. It's easy to look down our nose even without intending to. My brothers and sisters, but the truth is that if you or I were in that type of chaos, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without the resources that we have, without the connections and the contacts that we have, without the family members that we have, we might be tempted to give up too.
Amen.
So, my brothers and sisters, it is because we were not meant to live perpetually in chaos that on day 3 of creation, God brings up out of the midst of the chaos the land. Land that we can stand on, land that we can find our footing on, land to pull us up out of the chaos so that our lives are not perpetually in chaos, land in order that we can stand and walk and learn how to have strength and learn how to be with dignity. There is land. God creates land, my brothers and sisters, and the thing about land is that it's interesting. interesting because land seems to be at the center of many of our conflicts as human beings. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict that has been raging for all of my life is a conflict over land. We celebrate as a nation Independence Day, but for the people who lived in this land before the founders, quote unquote, discovered it, the wars that were fought, the lives that were lost, the heritage that was stripped away, it's all about land. Shortly after emancipation of slavery, when now a viable, creative, resourceful workforce was now thrust upon a Southern economy, and people who did not have to compete for jobs were now forced to compete for jobs. People who had owned land and did not have to pay people for their labor now had to pay people if they wanted their land worked. When the economy was in turmoil, and they created these Southern vagrancy laws that said if there were two men standing on a corner together, that they were in violation of the law, so that they could rearrest people who had just been emancipated and then force them to go back to work for free because slavery was only abolished if you were not in the custody of the criminal justice system. That is about land, about who controls it, about who, quote unquote, owns it. And so, my brothers and sisters, it seems like maybe God would have been better if God had never created land. Then we wouldn't have anything to be fighting over. But then God told me, he said, Nelson, it's not the land that causes the fight. It's the desire to control the land. That we always destroy the gifts that God has given us when we try to control that which we were not intended to control. God gave Adam and Eve stewardship over the land, but they could not control it. That is God's and God's alone to do. But yet we try to control the land, my brothers and sisters. We try to protect ourselves from the chaos. Notice when God finished creation, my brothers and sisters, God does not eliminate the chaos, but he has a beautiful harmony of chaos and spaces away from the chaos. But when we try to only occupy the spaces where there is no chaos, and to create or form for ourselves lives where chaos does not impact our lives, the only way we can do that is by subjecting somebody else to perpetual chaos. In other words, my brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to say is that the reason why so many people live in perpetual chaos is because there's somebody who is trying to avoid all chaos. We have fostered this, maybe not us in this room, but the American form of Christianity has fostered this notion that we can live without chaos. We can name and claim our chaos away.
Say that.
That if we are saved by God, then God saves us from the chaos. So now we're able to avoid it. And so there are many people who think that it is their Christian duty to create lives for themselves where chaos does not impact their lives. And in doing so, they are blind to the fact that they are subjecting other people to live in perpetual chaos. because somehow that doesn't register in our theological claims. God created harmony with enough land for everybody to live, and enough chaos to challenge everybody to be better. But we can only enjoy the land in peace, and only stem the tide of the chaos when we realize that we are in this thing together. And there's no way that we can do it unless we do it together. And the more we blind ourselves or allow ourselves to be blinded to the fact, the longer we allow ourselves to close a blind eye while somebody else's neighborhood is in chaos, as long as our neighborhood is okay. As long as we continue to elect leaders whose vision it is to protect America from chaos at the expense of creating chaos in the rest of the world, and we wonder why there are acts of so-called terrorism in the rest of the world.
That's right.
Then we can't find the harmony that God created. God created the land, and on the land, vegetation grew. The trees, the plants, the flowers. Things grew on the land. But those things cannot grow without the very thing that is the chaos. If you've ever seen a land with no water, it's just a desert.
All right.
And so we, in our own lives, we are called to live our lives in balance. Sometimes that means we must give up some of the space that we occupy to allow somebody whose life is chaotic to have some land to stand on. And sometimes it means we must join our voices together and speak to those who are creating and causing chaos for others. And say that even if the chaos doesn't impact me, even if it seems like this is not my fight, I will not stand idly by and allow the chaos to impact somebody else. In Seattle, there was a man who understood this lesson. I don't know if he's a man of faith. I'd like to believe he is. But Jesus says, you know a tree by the fruit it bears. This man was the CEO of a technology company, and he was making over $1.5 million every year. He had worked hard to build his company from the ground up. He started it in his own basement and had built it up until this multi-million-dollar company, where he was able to earn $1.5 million and still allow for the company to continue to grow. And he woke up one day and he had a revelation. And he called all of his employees together in a room. And he stood on the balcony overlooking the room. And he said to all of his employees, from this day on, I am cutting my salary. I know I've earned it, and the market says I ought to earn $1.5 million, but I'm cutting my salary to $70,000 a year, so that each and every one of you can earn at least $70,000 a year. So nobody should come to work for a company that is as rich and successful as our company and have to figure out how are they going to pay their bills. No matter what you do, whether you sweep the floor or you're the head of the company, everybody ought to earn a living wage. And so everybody now earns $70,000 a year starting today. Word spread about it. CEOs called them and said, "What are you doing? You're upsetting our economy. You can't let the market crash. The market dictates salary. You can't do this. You are going to ruin business for everybody else." And the newspaper writer called him and asked, "What did you say to the CEOs when they called you?" And he said, "I told them, you can't possibly believe that we can continue to earn so much while the masses of people earn so little. And that one day they won't come and tear down our gates and burn our houses and burn us at the stake. And so what I'm trying to do now is to prevent the inevitable collapse of this market you revere so much by making sure everybody can live with dignity. And if you value the market, if you valued your home and your way of life, you would do the same." He understood, my brothers and sisters, that creation cannot exist. Our society cannot exist when some people are forced to live in perpetual chaos so that other people can have the illusion of immortality.
Wow.
It was the pursuit of immortality that caught the first couple up. It is the pursuit of immortality that catches so many people up. We all need land to stand on, a place out of the chaos. If you're fortunate, you have a home, and that's a place out of the chaos. I know I thank God every time I've had a long day, I can go in and shut my door, turn off the phone, unplug the internet, turn off the TV, just sit in the quiet. Some people don't have that even in their homes. Some people's homes are chaos. And so they come here to the church to find a peace out of the chaos. They come here to find a place where God can speak to them in their hearts because they don't have it anyplace else. But for some people, not even a church is a place of chaos. And so where do we go? If you can't find it in your home and you can't find it in church, where do you go to avoid the storms of life? Where do you go to find a place to stand on, a place outside of the chaos? And if you cannot find anywhere else, my brothers and sisters, can I recommend that you go to the place that my grandmother would say, go to the rock that is higher than I.
Yes.
And Jesus is a place
Yes.
that you can find out of the chaos. Would you do me a favor? Would you take a moment and ask God, what is it that you're saying to me today?
Yes.
And would you just turn to a neighbor that is sitting right next to you and share with them just for a moment what God is sharing with you?